YouTube? How's everybody doing today? Welcome to a special edition of the Osiris League cast. Before we start though, a bunch of you folks did not like the jacket. You guys had a lot to say. You didn't recognize me. What is this jacket? What is he wearing? Where's the hat? I understand why he wears a hat now. Where, if you guys don't like this that much, well, you know, you can always get rid of that. And you know, get that nice little hat back on just the way you know me. Oh, and bam, there we go. Fix that problem. As I told you guys many in the past, we're here to make this the best possible experience. Look, I'm even updated right down there. The best possible experience for you guys. And if that's what's bothering you, my hat, my jacket, well, hell, let's get rid of all of it and put it back on. Anyway, we have today a very exciting matchup. Hopefully, we'll be able to get in this time around, right? Last time around this happened, we had a little bit of trouble. We definitely had a little bit of trouble getting into the match last time around. This is DSP against JWM. Now, here's the deal. This matchup is going to be a little bit of an interesting one, and here's why. Ooh, whoa, what is that? Sorry about that, chat. Speaker's going crazy out there. But anyway, won't stop us from continuing on. And here's the thing. DSP against JWM, two of the probably most expected matches happening today. Not only this one, but also BBTH against NCB. Unfortunately, both of them happening at the same time, so we cannot cast both matches. However, one of the most important things that we have to remember is that this unfortunately pushed all of round 2 by 1 week. And so it is what it is. We're going to have one cast today and go from there. Let's start talking a little bit first and foremost about this match. And boy, oh boy, you guys were betting hard against DSP. You guys were betting hard against DSP. I think that the biggest, yeah, probably the biggest betting out of all the bets out there with the most participants and the most money and the most everything has to be this matchup right here. And boy, oh boy, DSP are not looking good in the eyes of the community. Let's look at the teams that we are going to see today. DSP from Kingdom 46. They're a very interesting story. They are two alliances that merged after their first Lost Kingdom. They were Kingdom 48 and 46, if I'm not mistaken, led by Laguna, one of the leaders, one of the moderators in the Rise of Kingdoms Discord, someone we know from the Rise of Kingdoms Discord for quite some time. He's the leader of this alliance, one of the most prominent members in the community, and a big boy alliance. We're talking 2.4 billion power, 2.4 billion power across this alliance and its strength during this Osiris League. They had a pretty straightforward run, as you can see. Very, very straightforward run. 70,000 plus points all over the place. What can you say? One matchup where they just hit about 68, but hey, sometimes that does happen too. Pretty easily all the way towards the guys at JWM, towards this playoffs right here. Taking a look at the other side, and I think I have both sides different, right? So DSP are red and JWM are blue. I'm not entirely sure. I might have mixed those sides, so I apologize for that on the background. JWM is not a name I really need to talk about that much. It's one of the most known alliances in the game. It's been one of the strongest, if not the strongest alliance through time. They bring in the massive firepower, 30 tier 5s, the same thing as DSP, but some of the most prominent names in this alliance. Big eyes on these folks today. As you can see, they don't joke around. They come in and play hard at any possible time. These are two of the biggest alliances in the game. These are folks that are going up, in DSP's case, against UCS from Kingdom 2 in Lost Kingdom 3, and they've been fighting hard for a long while in their Lost Kingdom. And so were JWM against Kingdom 185, had a huge battle between the two kingdoms, and it was just crazy. These are two of the biggest alliances colliding for an Osiris League spot. Now, remind you guys, this is just the beginning of Osiris League. There are 3 matchups in the group stages of this playoffs and only 2 of the 4 alliances within a group will make it to the next phase. And so losing one match doesn't mean you're out, but you definitely want to start on the right foot, and both these teams are looking to get it done from the beginning. We have about 9 minutes until the match, and so what can we say beyond that? Match is still not there just yet. We're about 9 minutes out, and so the question here is, are these 2 alliances ready, or have they been preparing? I can tell you for a fact that both alliances have a little bit of their own strategies hidden under their sleeve. They have a couple of aces in the hole. Both alliances have their little strategies and adaptations to strategies. I am more than sure that both alliances have been keeping an eye on their opposition, taking a look at matches, and so forth and so on. On DSP's side, they are still fighting to this day, I think, inside Lost Kingdom, and now taking a break for a little bit of Osiris fun. On JWM's side, things are calm in a Lost Kingdom 1. Zone 7 is as overcrowded as it could be, and now just getting ready and getting geared into the match itself. What are a couple of things we need to remember about Ark of Osiris, and in general for you guys to keep an eye on Ark of Osiris? We've seen the White Tigers versus Legends Gaming matchup, the previous cast we had last week, where the Ark of Osiris was the most important piece for the victory of the White Tigers. They took over that arc again and again, and that's how they were very successful at winning a very close matchup, the last matchup of the day last week. So keeping an eye on who owns the arc area, is very important and very significant. But also occupation points, as we've mentioned plenty of times before, are the #1 priority early on to make sure you keep up the points per minute game. Ark of Osiris is all about points per minute. You have all these different buildings that give out all these different points based on occupation. When you occupy a certain building, you hold on to it for 3 long minutes. Once you hold on to it for 3 long minutes, it is successfully occupied by your alliance. And once that happens, each building has its own points per minute denomination. The map holds 1,180 points. As a total, each building has its own points, and there is a full hour to try to get as many points as possible and win the match. Everything pretty straightforward, like every other Ark of Osiris you've casted before. We're just winding down, waiting a few more moments until the match begins. A couple of other things to keep an eye on during the Ark are the big 4 buildings, the altar, desert altar, and you have the desert altar and the sky altar on both sides, up and down. 4 buildings all together, 600 total points out of 1,180 points out of those 4 buildings alone. Those are the main point-giving buildings. What we usually see early on during a match is the 2 teams take 2 of their own altars on their side, as we have a mirrored map. And then from there, the fight begins to see who gets the other side's maps, buildings. The thing is, with altars, they're worth more than pretty much every other building by a lot. And so occupying 3 to 4 altars, or at least the bare minimum, the 2 that belong to you, is a must in order to win the points per minute game. On top of all this, there are the buildings nearby, which are also super important, that are the shrines, specifically the Shrine of War. Why is the Shrine of War more important than the Shrine of Life, you may ask? Because at this level, these folks are most likely not healing. These guys are most likely not healing, and if they are healing, it's a very minimal number compared to what we would have seen in the group stages, where we saw a match with 15 million heals by one team alone. And so because you'll see much less healing during this match, you're going to see more emphasis on the Shrines of War, where the buffs are all about war, about attack and defense rather than healing speed. The healing speed is important too. 80 points per minute from that building is crucial to win the point per minute game, but having the Shrines of War is a bigger priority, and you'll notice throughout the match that the priorities should follow as such. In terms of buildings, altars, Shrine of War, Shrine of Life, and then the outposts and obelisks, of course. And very early on in the game, I have a feeling we're going to see a lot of obelisk fights. Obelisks are the initial buildings that once you occupy them for 3 minutes, they allow you to teleport out of the starting zone into their area. All of this, by the way, is coming to you guys next week in the form of a short video. I just have to, at this point in time, tell it to you guys face to face, but next week, expect a very, very, very awesome video to explain to you all about Ark of Osiris. But for now, we're back into the obelisks. An obelisk is a building only worth 20 points per minute. It is very insignificant in the point per minute game, but it is super significant in the sense that you must have it in order to be able to teleport away from the starting zone. Once you occupy the 2 obelisks or 4 obelisks total on the map, you'll have a certain amount of teleports your alliance members can use to get out of the starting zone into the obelisk area, into the open field, get a little bit closer to the action, to be able to join rallies quicker, to be able to attack, to get to buildings, to get back home your defeated troops, everything faster as you're ported forward on the map. Early on during the match, each team is going to grab their own obelisks, but we'll most likely see both teams rally the enemy obelisks. This is a very classic meta played in every level of Ark. Some do hit the obelisks, other cancel the obelisk rallies along the way to move troops up on the field, and many other things. So another important thing that we were talking about to keep an eye on Ark are obelisks and the first rallies early on. We are about 3 minutes away from the match. Final closing thoughts on this matchup. There are 2 very important things to remember. Number 1, regardless of who wins or who loses, this is only one of 3 matches on the groups. Everything is still open. And secondly, because this is a match that was supposed to happen last week, round 2 that was supposed to happen this week has been delayed for next week. We will be covering every matchup next week on every slot, and you guys are going to get the chance to have an influence on what we cast. Over the course of this week, at some point, we will be releasing a poll for you guys to choose which match you want us to cast. So keep an eye on the official Rise of Kingdoms Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and all the social medias. Somewhere in there, we will post the poll. And in this match, you have myself, as well as my friend Dragothian on this side, actually, who will be on in a moment, and we're going to start this cast up. We're about a minute and a half away. Hopefully, fingers crossed, everything works out. And yeah, hopefully everything works out the way it should. Now, one last thing that needs to be done is me get out of here for a moment. Apologize for that one, but that needs to be done. Bam, there we go. And now everything should be good to go for our cast. Forgot about one thing. I apologize, but here we go. So, what we got, 60 seconds away. We're just waiting up on the match to start. My goodness gracious. Chat, folks, ladies and gentlemen, a minute and a half before the match. In the comments right now, let me know who is going to win. Hashtag JWM or hashtag DSP. And we can't put the hashtag in between inside the DSP name because it ruins the hashtag. So hashtag JWM or hashtag DSP in the comments right now. Was that Skype? That was Skype. You did hear Skype. JWM, I see a lot of bets on JWM. Hashtag DSP, hashtag JWM. I even see a hashtag AOC in the chat. Woo, wow, we have a lot of folks going for that DSP. My goodness gracious, look at you guys. What a beautiful thing to see. If you don't know, by the way, BBTH and NCB are matching at the same time. Unfortunately, we will not be able to cover that match due to a little bit of a restriction that we have here. Obviously, we can only watch one match at a time. But with that being said, the match is just about ready to start. Let's make sure we have the watch button, which we do. So yeah, let's go on to the open field and see how we can get this match going.
Again, we are live with JWM and DSP. This is going to be an absolutely fantastic match to watch. It's one we've been waiting an entire week for. It's been an up and down week trying to get this stuff up and ready for you, and I assure you, you are not going to be disappointed with this match. Gecko, do we got you back in, buddy?
Yes, sir. I'm always here. I'm always here in the background.
All right, sounds like a plan. So yeah, this is going to be the last of the two matches left from the first week. And again, this was one of the premier matches. This was going to be our very first match that we casted for last weekend. And sure enough, we get to have that for you all right now, getting to watch it live and getting to watch everything going forward. It's going to be great. We've got tons of strategies happening, tons of people in the chat already inside the game. I see floods of characters floating across the screen as a spectator. That means that everybody is tuned into this thing, and I cannot wait for this thing to start in a minute and 20 seconds.
Yeah, man. One of the most important things to see here is I am very happy to inform that I see a lot of folks on the map, which is a good thing. Hopefully this means the lag went away and the issues are resolved. We're still missing a couple of key people from DSP, but other than that, it looks like the map is slowly populating. And yeah, man, I'm very excited. We've been waiting for this for a long time, huh?
Yeah, for sure. And so just to talk a little bit about the alliances before this match kicks off in just under 50 seconds, JWM, clearly one of the biggest powerhouses in the game from a total alliance power standpoint. They have been for quite some time. DSP in their own right, definitely a larger alliance and part of a larger kingdom as well. Both known for having power players and both known for having their own separate strategies for victory when it comes to Ark of Osiris. So I'm really interested to see how these two match up right off the bat, right out the gate. I'm really looking forward to seeing the total and absolute flood of T5 players pouring out of each of their respective zones. This is going to be an amazing thing to watch, and it's going to be right in front of you guys in just under 10 seconds. I can't wait.
Yeah, man, and as we're waiting the 5-second countdown, let's keep an eye on the gates opening up and the floods begin. We're looking slowly and steadily at JWM pouring out of their gates, and so our DSP slowly and steadily making their way. Marches all over the place. This is what we wanted, wasn't it?
I'm telling you, this is exactly the kind of tone that is going to set the stage for this match. And just like we always start off with, too, when we're talking about strategy at the beginning, right? We expect to see rallies from both sides going to all 4 obelisks just to make sure, A, you secure your own side, and B, you can either attempt to secure your opponent's obelisks, or you can break those rallies beside the altars and get a good leg up, getting the points advantage going for yourself, or taking that point advantage away from your opponent by not letting them be able to take that whenever the altars open up.
Yeah, one of the interesting things to see here is, unlike a lot of the matches we've seen before, we are seeing a few individuals pour out all of their marches out of the gates, but we're not seeing the outpour, the insane amounts of madness, crazy marches all over the place, at least from DSP's side yet. That is because we're looking at 28 against 30, which is not the worst thing on earth yet. There's still plenty of time for DSP folks to make it in, but it looks like some folks in here are ready to already teleport out. It looks like they're conserving their troops. They're not trying to march too far out to stay on the open field for too long. They really want to be able to port out as soon as they have that obelisk and get themselves into the match as soon as possible. But just like as I say that, more and more marches start pouring out.
Yeah, it's still a flood either way. That being said, though, that is a significant point to point out here. 2 players short on a playoff game. When both teams have almost all, if not all, T5 players, that could be a big difference. We're talking about being, 3 minutes into the match, right? 2 or 3 minutes in, and having 2 players short. That means that, that's going to be already a hurdle to overcome from Deadly Sin's Pride Alliance. And JWM already starting to show some flex and having both their obelisks captured already and working on their 3rd outpost. And again, they're just starting to pour across the map. I already see tons of JWM starting to maneuver in position towards the center. This is going to be a good one, guys. I cannot wait to see these 2 clash. They're going to meet right in the middle, and it's going to be a show.
One of the most important things to say, there are 4 rallies on JWM's side and 2 on DSP's. DSP right now aiming at 2 obelisks. They're enemy obelisks. They're going at them. By the looks of it, 2 different rallies. JWM rallied their own obelisk at the bottom and made it in, so that obelisk is safely secured. And there are rallies from both sides on both obelisks going across the map. The advantage right now lies in JWM's hand. They have all their initial buildings locked in their favor. DSP really taking their time with that bottom obelisk. And boy, oh boy, I don't see that many marches nearby. There are a few of them popping on my screen now. But man, this is taking a little bit too long for a very crucial, important building early on.
Yeah, I see a flood, but that flood I don't want to say it's a trickle because there's a lot of there's a lot of armies, but at the same time, this JWM rally at the bottom obelisk may actually, okay, they arrived literally at the same time, but they need to fill that obelisk in a quick way. They've got folks sitting around that obelisk, and now they're starting to fill it up. But man, that's a full cav march from JWM, and it is led by Double C, which means that's why they were able to get that rally there so quickly. A little less damage happening on that obelisk because Double C is leading, Chow Chow, but at the same time, JWM was almost able to ninja capture that obelisk in a split second. And now here comes the flood of DSP armies to go ahead and help reinforce that obelisk. And again, probably start swarming that rally as well, or at least they should be. So it looks like DSP dodged a bullet on the bottom obelisk, but again, at what cost? You've got all these armies out on the map, and they're over here fighting a rally instead of moving forward and starting to push towards their own desert altar, which already is starting to get surrounded by JWM on the bottom side.
So I don't think they necessarily dodged the bullet, right? They moved away and it hit somewhere else. It didn't hit the main artery. It didn't hit that obelisk right there. But look at how much attention this one rally, cavalry rally down here had. Most of these folks, like you said, focusing on making sure this obelisk is okay before they continue on with their tasks. And that was enough for JWM to have a little bit of an extra advantage on the open field. As you said, Desert Altar about to open up. And the occupation went to JWM, and they capped it. And now, even if they don't hold on to this building, they already are delaying DSP from having this building, which means that later on they have the time to start a rally and go at this Desert Altar. This initial delay is huge. And just like I was saying in the pregame, holding on to 3 altars is a key to win the occupation game. And not necessarily, you don't necessarily have to hold on to them, but something we should talk more and more about as time goes by is not letting the other team hold on to a building is just as important as holding on to it by yourself.
Yeah, it's a points game, right? When you're talking about kills in the match, those are individual points. Then we've got the buildings, which are going to give you alliance points as well as the provisioning scores if you're doing some farming on the back end. You want to do as many points per minute as possible, as often as possible in this match. So with that being said, JWM posturing forward and taking that altar, even though it was only for a few seconds, maybe 30 to 45 seconds, that's 30 to 45 seconds that DSP will not be able to be accruing points, which again, in the grand scheme of things, ends up being pretty significant. Those minutes stack up over the course of the match.
Let's be even more exact than that. With the 40, let's go with the number of 40 seconds held. This Desert Altar was delayed. 40 seconds in Desert Altar number means 100 points. 100 points were taken away from Deadly Sin's Pride by simply delaying this very, very crucial Desert Altar from going into the favor of red team. And now the map looks as it should, right? It looks split up where the cut is. As I mentioned in the pregame, the map is a mirrored map, and this is how it should look like when each team has their own side. And now the question is, who aggresses first? Who makes the first move? And I can tell you on the rally counts, JWM have 4 of them lined up and ready to go. And curiously enough, a couple of them are not even marching out. And that's an interesting question. Are they delaying rallies on purpose?
That's interesting. I mean, we do that. You see that happen in the regular Kingdom and in Lost Kingdom event as well, where people try to delay rallies so they can time it just right. That's not a bad strategy, and one that I have not seen in Ark of Osiris. If that's what's happening, that's very, very interesting. Or the alternative is somebody's just joining from really far away. So there's 2 options there. But as we start to see the Ark of Osiris get to the point where it's ready to be captured. So it's got 4.5 minutes left. JWM starting to posture forward. Deadly Sins Pride starting to posture forward. This is where you're going to see the first initial big clash between these two titans of alliances. And sure enough, right now, JWM has a little bit of a positioning advantage. They were there early. They had 5-6 armies sitting there waiting at the arc, ready to push anything that came from the red team back. And now that they've got some reinforcements on the back end, they decided, you know what, we're not going to wait for DSP to push forward. We're going to go ahead and push them right now. I see loads of skill damage getting poured out, tons of cavalry armies, tons of infantry armies. I see debuffs, I see buffs. You see a Constantine buff pop up right there too. There's just all kinds of open field skirmishes happening there, and it looks like JWM has a little bit of an advantage there. And I will say, tons of AoEs coming down too. That's always my favorite thing to see.
So one of the things that are important to notice here is that the folks that are up here are not your typical JWM members. So far, what you're seeing is an interesting way of dividing your troops up. It looks like some of the folks we're watching in the center are also launching rallies. So one of the things that is interesting to talk about is how does a player's role fit within Ark of Osiris? Because having 5 marches is fantastic. You cannot rally with 5 marches. You can join rallies to an extent, yes, but as a rally leader, how many troops are you willing to commit into a rally versus having them on the open field, since you have all these big boy commanders all maxed out or somewhere along the way? So to see how certain alliances set up their rallies so that certain individuals are rally leaders and arc holders versus rally leaders and open field fighters, kind of what we saw from White Tigers and Chiskel's role. We saw Chiskel both rallying and open field battling. I really like the dynamics that are changing. I'm seeing a lot of rally leaders swarming as well nowadays, and a few of them swarming the center.
Yeah, and the map is really starting to light up like a Christmas tree when it comes to all these flashing lights. I just saw DSP defend the Sky Altar at the bottom, and or Desert Altar, excuse me. And curious enough, they're using Edward as a garrison, which I wouldn't have thought to use Edward that way. I'm interested to see how that battle report would turn out, but open field battles everywhere, and let's not be coy here, right? This is the top tier, folks. So for those of you that are watching that are newer to the game, or excuse me, are just getting into it and starting to march around with your mixed armies and really getting the feel of the game, this is the end game. This is the top tier. You won't see any mixed troop armies out on the battlefield unless it's for a reason. If they've got a leadership style commander with the proper talents to take advantage of that mixed army, 9 times out of 10, you're going to see full one-troop type armies led by specialized commanders that are going to take advantage of those troops. So this is what you're driving for. This is what you're striving for inside of the game when you're doing your daily training, you're doing your daily research, your activities, your just everyday one-on-one between you and your alliance, doing things every day. This is what you're trying to strive for. So this is what you're going to be looking to do once you arrive at that end game, and it's a beautiful thing to see.
And just as Dragothian was saying all this, we had a Shrine of War being rallied and a counter rally being launched on the rally. And my goodness gracious, we lagged out for a second. But regardless, I saw something interesting that is really important to point out, that you mentioned it, and we saw it happen in the match itself. And we did disconnect. Hopefully we'll be able to reconnect back into the match, or else this won't be very happy. And here we go. So we're good. Anyway, yeah. We saw JWM counter rally the rally, which is one of those points that, just like you said, it's the top tier of the game. Counter rallying a rally is one of the most basic things nowadays to get rid of a rally efficiently. But what JWM did, which was really interesting, is someone joined a full cavalry rally with infantries as soon as it arrived. No. Now, luckily for the JWM folks, it was not a Genghis Khan-led rally or anything that had to do a Genghis Khan nearby, so those infantries did not harm the cavalry rally. But now I'm starting to get curious whether that was intentional, whether they are just trying to get this big force of this big body of troops, which is a rally, with I don't know, half of it full of cavalries to get to the destination as fast as possible. And armies parked outside of that destination join in once the rally begins, essentially to swarm, but not really swarm. It's an interesting point to take a look at later on. How do you use the mechanism of a rally to move troops around the map and to protect them?
Yeah, that's I agree with that 100%. Rallies aren't just for rallying a structure anymore. The game has gone to a new level where people are starting to utilize rallies as a transportation method. So it's key to know how rallies work. And in Ark of Osiris particularly, because it has a very unique rally function of having a 1-minute rally, you can use rallies as a very strategic way to maneuver troops on the battlefield quickly, efficiently. And then also on top of that, use a rally to kind of psych your opponent out. You can send it over to an obelisk, you can send it over to a shrine of war, and then break it halfway through and capture an altar. Or there's so many things that you can do with it. And there's rallies going off everywhere on this match. It looks like JWM, by the way, does have the Ark and is posturing it back towards their own outpost. And it looks like with pretty minimal effort there. I don't see any red armies around that Ark because JWM is basically closed off that middle lane. I see DSP trying to bring a few marches up, but not enough to really go after the Ark in any meaningful way. That being said, it's one Ark. There's usually 3 or 4 Arks per match, unless they try to do something a little sneaky and maybe try to hide that Ark, which is a whole nother strategy that could be utilized. But we'll talk about that later if they decide to do something like that. But I think just JWM right now has the major advantage. Buildings are even right now. However, they've got the middle, and if the buildings are even the entire match and one side captures more arcs than the other, that side will win. It's basic mathematic fact.
So one of the things I realized for a second is we're talking a lot about big game and not specifics about the match. Let's, as you just focused back in, let's try to focus a little bit more on the current situation at hand for both teams, because a lot of interesting things are happening on the map. First and foremost, I have yet to see a rally win on either side. The buildings were in the favor of JWM when JWM picked up that desert altar in the beginning, but ever since, nothing has changed. Every building has been rallied by each team at least once without success of occupying the building. But that little gap, that little extra advantage that JWM had early on, which we pointed out very, very, very specifically, the fact that they had both their obelisks early on, the fact that they picked up one altar even for 40 seconds, the fact that they picked up their buildings faster, gave them a very slight lead. They had about 400-point lead before this Ark was delivered, and now that the Ark was delivered, another 3,000 points were added to their name. But right now, if the match stays as is, meaning nobody is getting any building away from anyone, this is as deadlocked as it can be on the buildings area, well, we're going to have a game that's all about Ark of Osiris. And JWM, from the get-go, we're never going to let red team in. From the beginning, the folks like Noon, Poon, Pepe, and a few other folks have been here from the beginning. Iorla's Max, and the guy who is carrying the Ark is also coming back now. All of these folks were here from the beginning, and they're not letting red in. And as far as they're concerned, so long as the points per minute game stays at 590 against 590, and they keep taking the Ark, the win is going to probably be in the favor of JWM. And another Edward on the Sky Altar, Dragothian. What is this?
Oh my goodness. So rallies everywhere, right? And more importantly, where's the field battle? The field battles are what's going to dictate the success of all of these rallies. If they are truly trying to use these rallies as a way to capture these buildings, they have to win the field battles first. And right now, just like you said, every single rally here is not being successful. And if you'll notice at every single blinking building, the people who are holding that structure have armies around that structure to swarm the rallies down, to defend the actual structure itself by filling it up with more troops. That's what's going to defend. If they want to actually take these buildings away from their opponents, they're going to absolutely have to maneuver and commit and posture troops forward. So all these buildings getting pushed back, all these buildings flashing. I mean, even the Shrine of War at the top left on JWM side, again, it's the same thing. It's a blue sea of troops swarming a rally. That rally is going to fail, just like every other spot as well.
With the exception of the Sky Altar and Desert Altar that belonged to red. Sky Altar about to fall, going blue, and so did the Desert Altar just now. As you were going through the conversation of owning the open field, the Desert Altar was completely obliterated by Da. Da is one of the bigger, most significant players of JWM, and Da said, hell no. 5 marches, 1.5 million tier 5s swarmed that building, and even though there were swarms on top of them, there was nothing that could be done. Da held on to this building for about a minute now, and it's still belonging to JWM. Sky Altar, same story. The rally was just hitting a building that was not that well defended, and it didn't have, as you said, the open field support next to it, which is why the building fell. And now JWM are scrambling to re-engage in here and try to defend the Sky Altar up. If they manage to hold on to it for another 2 minutes and start getting points from it, even better. But as of right now, they chopped off half of the points that red team had, and they're at a 300 point per minute lead in the favor of blue team with almost 4,000 points in their favor as well. Boy, oh boy, slowly and steadily, JWM are starting to turn on the heat with 4 altars in their favor.
Yeah, absolutely. And just like you said, 2 Sky Altars, or a Desert Altar and a Sky Altar being taken. We're just waiting for the countdown timer of 1:30 for them to start generating points for JWM. And I'm going to tell you right now, having 4 altars generating points for you at any point in an Ark of Osiris match, it's staggering how many points you're going to start receiving, and that really starts to add to the buffer that JWM is going to have. Still tons of open field fights, and wow, there's not a whole lot of response to this top Sky Altar. Let me check out the Desert Altar as well. There's
nothing in the Desert
response.
Altar, brother. Da, just 5 marches, holding on to that Desert Altar for dear life.
Yeah, you got a rally coming into it as well. You got 4 or 5 armies coming up in support of it. This is going to be the one to watch, I think, more than the Sky Altar at the top. The Sky Altar at the top just has that one rally, but there's tons of JWM. That's going to be an interesting one to watch. The bottom one, the bottom rally for the Shrine of War, right there is also getting swarmed around, and then also the Desert Altar on the very bottom has that rally hitting, and it looks like it may get taken back. And just sure enough, it did just take it back. I think it was really 1 or 2 players that just beast moded that Desert Altar with JWM and decided, you know what, we want this structure.
Da.
So they went ahead and did it.
Straight up Da.
Yeah.
Da was there like, I want this, and just went for it and just didn't stop till he got it. And what do you know? It got taken away. But that's 2 minutes without points for red team, and now another 3 minutes before they get those points back. JWM 740 points per minute ahead against the 290 of DSP. Boy, oh boy, Dragothian, this is getting from bad to worse.
Ooh, this is looking good. And again, looking at the participant count, DSP still short 1 player. That's not the end of the world, like you said, but just one less thing that they could have had to deal with. They should have had to deal with. You know, just that should be a given. We're going to have all 30 of our players that way. At least we have the same number of people playing. And then it comes down to strategy, especially in the playoffs for Ark of Osiris on the Osiris League. It's going to be interesting to see exactly how the rest of this plays out. But like you said, JWM really kind of posturing and having the strong power position in this particular match with 740 points a minute, having taken those altars at least for a little bit, and having 3 right now as well.
Yeah, and Shrine of War, major fighting happening against this Shrine of War on DSP side on the top area. JWM picking up an outpost just to be a nuisance, be a pain in the butt for DSP, who have to take care of one more thing now. And same thing, Shrine of Life being contested. At this point, JWM know they are way in the lead. 480 points in the favor of JWM. Means on top of the fact that they have the center plus the first arc, right now, they placed every single piece of pressure they wanted to place on top of DSP. And all they're doing now is stand. They're just standing where they need to be and continuously putting that pressure in. You can see they're not applying more pressure by adding more rallies, by pushing harder, by sending more troops into the center. All they're doing, they're poking the same 2 rallies again and again and again. Shrines, altars to keep DSP constantly occupied and not paying attention to their own offensive side, which, by the way, when was the last time you saw a DSP rally that was not on a building that is theirs? When have they rallied a building that belongs to JWM last?
I haven't seen one in a few minutes. And again, that's because, just like you said, you've got 4 or 5 rallies from JWM coming at all times. You can't move forward whenever you can't defend your own front line. And again, it's nothing to do with DSP not being able to defend, but just the constant pressure of JWM saying, hey, you need to be over here because I've got a huge rally coming your way, and I've also got 5 or 6 armies coming behind it in support. That means DSP, if they don't want to lose, they need to place troops there. And again, being at the troop disadvantage right now, just from a player behind standpoint, but just as important, having all those troop armies from JWM being in that forward posturing is really starting to take its toll on DSP. Now, as we get closer and closer to the obelisks for DSP, right, you'll start to notice that those armies start refreshing just a little bit quicker. They start to arrive at the battlefield a lot quicker. That means that JWM, if they want to continue to start pushing towards these obelisks, they're going to have to start committing more and more troops to those pushes, which means those troops won't necessarily be able to sit in the middle. That would be DSP's window to start switching their strategy up a little bit and saying, you know what, let's just hold our own and really start focusing on the middle. I'm interested to see if that's the play that they do.
I'm really curious because you brought up a really good point, which is, when do you stop pushing forward? As you mentioned, the more you push forward, the closer you get to your enemy's obelisks, the harder it gets, as now you're getting closer to their cities, and therefore they can refresh their troops much faster. But at what point do you want to spread yourself too thin? Meaning, right now, JWM have the big boy lead, 310 points per minute, and they own more buildings to the point where even if they lose right now 150 points per minute, which is one of their altars, and now they wait the 3 minutes to get back to the 590, they've already gained a substantial lead, and they have the second arc now. Do they care to push? Usually, yes. Usually, you could see that in the results of JWM, they do not let their enemies get points if it's not necessary. But in this case, do you make that lapse of judgment of saying, I am the biggest, baddest, strongest, and like a lot of the top 32 do, and just push forward? Or do you stay content with what you have? It's working. You're going to win the way it is. Just keep calm and do your thing, rather than, as you said, let DSP have that window of a potential slip up. When do you stop?
That's a loaded question. If you ask any single one of these players that's fighting this match on either side, they're going to tell you we never stop. And yeah, it's a right. There's strategy to being reserved and saying, hey, we've got a cushion lead. Let's sit on it. Let's go ahead and defend the structures that we've got and make sure they don't take anything. But in all reality, the reason they've got that buffer, the reason they have that lead is because they were pushing so hard and because they were maneuvering and posturing forward, taking those objectives on the opponent's side. So if it was me leading this JWM army, I would say keep the pressure up, keep the rallies going. They're not going to be able to handle all these rallies popping off one after the other, especially with them on their back foot.
Yes, but do we push forward?
50-50.
Do we push forward? Because, like, for example, right now, you can see that they're rallying the same stuff, right? The Desert Altar, the Sky Altar, the Shrine of War. They're just rallying the same things consistently. Do you just keep rallying the same things consistently? As far as I'm concerned, there is a place to talk about you taking this Desert Altar and not really caring to holding on to it for too long. Even if you hold it for 2 seconds, it's 3 minutes, the opposition doesn't get points, and you have the same target to rally again. So when do you, I'm not saying you stop putting pressure. You can see pressure from DSP on the Sky Altar at the bottom, and JWM coming in for the defense as well. And they keep putting the pressure no matter what. But at what point do you not put more pressure? You know, like at some point you say, this is enough pressure. We keep this level of pressure. We don't push even further.
I think right now is a good spot to continue doing what they're doing. So rally the structures, rally the altars and the shrines. What can get you into trouble is starting to focus energies on the obelisks. A lot of people get very wide eyes when they see those obelisks. They get really juicy. I prefer, as a strategy, to avoid doing obelisk rallies until it's absolutely necessary, meaning that's the only thing left to rally. Or, again, as a distraction measure to put somebody that's in my territory on their back foot. So if I was DSP, again, this might be that time where sending some rallies, not just to the structures that are point generating, like your altars and your shrines, but to the obelisk to keep them on their back foot and start to maybe turn the tide of war. Rallies are very, very strategically used, or when they're strategically used, can be a game changer and a momentum shifter. Because right now, JWM has almost double the points of DSP, and it has a lot to do with all that pressure we were just talking about.
So 28 minutes remaining on the match, 6 minutes until the third arc of Osiris appears on the map. JWM with a lead of over 11,000 points, and they are gaining more and more as they take a 330 points lead. Yeah, chat, math not working really well this morning. 330 point lead in the favor of it is early, of JWM. 3 teleports in the favor of the folks at DSP, who are now 30 individuals. I was waiting until this moment to comment about the members' presence. So you already stated your very strong opinion and very reasonable opinion. You know, we're in the top tier. There is no way people don't show up. But on the other hand, on the offhand that there are people not showing up, you have 10 substitutions. Substitutions are allowed to come in 3 minutes into the match. So I see no reason for DSP to not have fielded a substitution 20 minutes ago. And you can say there was lag, and you can say there were issues, and you can say there were connectivity problems, but the likelihood of 11 people who are most likely from 11 different places in the world connecting to 11 different servers around the world, or let's say even 2 different servers, someone must have been able to come in to be the 30th member. And so letting the reserves in has to be your first priority. You cannot allow yourself to play 20 plus minutes with 29 members. That's 5 marches less. It is significant.
Yeah, there's a reason there's 30 reinforcement slots available.
30, not 10. Sorry.
You don't want that to happen at all. You don't want to ever see that happen. And like you said, for the first 10, 15, 20 minutes of the match, they were short 2 players. That's critical. I mean, there was one that joined about maybe 10, 15 minutes in, and then the second one just joined now, so they're finally at their full maximum 30. But dang, why? You got 30 reinforcement slots for a reason. Use them. And just looking at the map again, just looking what you're watching, tons of open field battles. The Shrine of War is trying to get taken. There's tons of flashing structures on the map again. If that Shrine of War at the top right gets taken, that means that the top side lane will almost completely be blue, which means that they may start to push on that obelisk and turn that into the new objective that DSP has to focus on. Looks like they finally stopped it, but man, I can't see a point where JWM is just not going to be pushing forward. That's in their blood, that's in their DNA, that's in their coding inside of the alliance. So I'm looking forward to seeing what DSP can do with having this significant of a point differential to turn this thing around, because arcs are definitely going to need to be captured. And now that they've got their full 30, who knows? Maybe they can.
And the Shrine of Life survived by the skin of the skin of the skin of the teeth. My goodness, there must have been only 1 troop remaining when the reinforcements came in. There wasn't even an HP bar anymore. But now, we're back. It's back, and it's holding against Box's rally. Box, one of the leaders of JWM, one of the R4s, has one of the deepest set of commanders you could imagine. I'm assuming that's a maxed out Saladin, a maxed out cavalry march, going against a Genghis Khan and doing the work. These guys actually had to get in a couple of reinforcements to stop this rally, which is also being swarmed and still doing massive damage. And again, Dragothian, where is DSP's offense? I have not seen one move on the other side of the map. They picked up their one altar, the desert altar. Sky altar got taken away, and now I finally see a little bit of blinking sky altar on the blue side, but even then it's so well defended that This is only is this the only pressure DSP have to put in on JWM? One rally?
At least right now. And JWM, again, being smart, performed a counter rally as soon as they saw that rally coming in. So that counter rally is hitting right now. Obviously, it's getting swarmed as well. And with it being a YSG-led Archer rally, which is a quality rally, don't get me wrong, but it's also squishy. If you're going to have a rally like that, it's going to get swarmed. And if it gets swarmed, it's going to go down relatively quickly. And again, JWM very smart in positioning very tanky commanders with tanky troops inside of their altar and their shrines on their side of the map. That gives time for armies that you can see on your screen right now to come down and start swarming the rallies and swarming the reinforcements so that they can hold on to those objectives and not lose any points. That's the way to play the game. That's exactly the way they should be playing the game.
And I love the use of emotes on the battlefield. It's a very, very nice little touch in the game that was added quite a few months ago, and we don't see it used up enough. JWM sending out the smiley, DSP sending out the smiley back, everybody keeping it friendly, and Rally, again, unable to get the Sky Altar in favor of red. The good news for them, though, is that the top Sky Altar that was originally theirs on their side of the map has been successfully occupied, which means the only lead in points that JWM have left on the map is the outpost of Seth, which seems to be super well defended. Kind of interesting that an outpost is actually this well defended. And other than that, once the timer goes down, we're going to see 590, 590. Well, 625, 560 for a little bit until everything gets figured out with that outpost. And then JWM with 14,000 points in the lead. 35 seconds to the arc opens up, and I can only guess everything is blue in the center. When do we call it?
Sure is. Well, when they're in the playoffs, right? It's very hard to call a match early. You're looking at double the points basically right now. JWM does have a very strong posture in the middle. However, it's kind of light. They're starting to pull a few out from the middle to start really defending and pushing on these structures. And DSP does have quite a few armies at their outpost because they had to take that outpost back, and they have taken it back, but there's still fighting happening on the field there. So that's keeping 8 armies. I don't know if 8 armies is necessary to take down one Constantine and one Alex, but that's what they're doing, and they should go ahead and start bringing all those armies up to the middle. Like you said, the arc is now captured by JWM. Those armies should have been at the arc, not tapping 2 armies that are sitting beside an outpost that doesn't mean necessarily much in the grand scheme of things from points.
Big boy, JWM picked up the Ark of Osiris. Pepe went on to pick up the Ark, even though the Ark carrier was on its way and almost there. Pepe ended up picking up the Ark and marching it backwards. But what Pepe didn't see was the red coming in. The red made it in. The red team made it in from the bottom, creeped in. And now Pepe has a lot of company here. They have 5 marches right next to him trying to help him out. And if he notices that he can still bang a right and try to get out of here, but he doesn't seem to care about these marches too much. And we're about to see a small clash here for this arc. Again, this still works in the favor of JWM, by the way. Even if they don't pick up this arc right now, the fact that it's on their side of the map and it's taking time even to get back to red, that's big boy win for JWM, who at this point for them, the only enemy right now is time. They're waiting for that
begins,
time to end.
The chase begins. There's really one person with one other army from another person and trying to chase, and instead of going for the arc carrier, they're hitting the people that are in the open field that don't have the arc. Strategy here should definitely be focus on the arc carrier, skip right past all those other JWM armies, and focus down that Ark of Osiris carrier. They take double damage, folks, 200% damage whenever they are carrying the arc. That means that if you have 1 or 2 nukers, nuking armies on that arc carrier, it's going to melt in about relatively 3.5 seconds. So you need to be focusing that down, have them drop the arc, so that way they're not continually moving it forward like Pepe is right now. And JWM, again, doing a fantastic job holding DSP back when they shouldn't really be able to if the DSP folks were attacking the right target.
Yeah, and Pepe right now gonna fall down quite close to the outpost of Isit. Nonetheless, the arc has been dropped. This will be a little bit of a center of attention for Red for a little bit. They seem to want to try to go for this. They are so deep into blue territory and so deep around blue that I don't even think blue cares too much, even if red end up picking up this arc, just to chunk out these troops a little bit faster. That'll just make things a lot easier. As you can see, but bam, there goes one march out the window, and the other one is about to go pick up the arc, and the same will be its faith. But now the question is, what's next? What's next? Because there are 18 minutes and 58 seconds remaining on the match. And right now, JWM have a comfortable 15,000 point lead. If by any chance, I always play this game, by a miracle of God, all of a sudden the whole map becomes red, and there are 3 minutes until the red team picks up all the points on the map, that is 1,180 points, there will be 15 minutes remaining, less than that, 15 minutes and a half remaining, and that's pretty much the only way DSP can win. Once this arc is delivered, there aren't enough points on the playing field, as well as really time for a possibility of a comeback. And so as soon as this arc is delivered, I'm pretty sure we're safe to call it.
Yeah, and I think just really right now, just watching and having fun watching the open field battles is what I'm enjoying. I think you're right. At this point, they would have to capture, and when I say they, that's DSP, would have to capture both arcs and start to take over the map. And up until the 18-minute point that we just had left, in the match, they haven't been able to do that at any point in the match consistently. So I really don't see that happening. And again, it looks like JWM is about to capture this arc as well, which I think would finally put the last nail in the coffin. And there it is. So I really think JWM really does have this wrapped up. They've also almost got double the point total per minute as well, because while they were doing that successfully, they also took a couple of DSP buildings on the top lane as well, being the altar and the shrine of war there too.
So I think, chat, you guys are more than welcome to join us as we say GG to both JWM and DSP. This match was a really interesting match from the beginning. Let's get those GGs spammed in the chat for the folks of DSP and JWM who fought a really, really, really good fight. And what are things that we learned very quickly in these matches? One of the things that I've seen very fast that JWM do is insta counter rallies. The insta counter rallies have to become somewhat of a must play. And to do that, it means that there have to be some marches out there that are just sitting and pending a rally to come out so a counter rally can be set. So these guys have been playing together for so long, the folks of JWM, dialing in their roles, their plays, their strategy, and their lineup, that these folks are almost like a football team. Football, both American and soccer, I guess. Because sure, just like in American football and just like in every other world's football, I guess, you have players with specific roles who play in specific areas and have their specific specialties that you know that when you need that specialty to be activated, that's a player that knows it's his job and his role. So they know they have specialty players who are the counter ralliers for the defense. They have the specialty players who are the ralliers for offense. They have the specialty players who are rally fillers. They have the specialty players who are not only center players, but also rally leaders, but also rally fillers. Kind of just like in every sport, these guys have dialed in their team, which is a very consistent set of 30, the 30 main players that pretty much know their role like they know the palm of their hand.
You know, so again, we just basically kind of called the match because just mathematically it's going to be darn near, if not completely impossible for DSP to come back just from a points perspective. So let's talk about this. If you're DSP right now, what's your main priority at this point, especially if you're just playing the normal Ark of Osiris mode instead of necessarily Osiris League? You need to be getting your points, guys. You need to be getting your individual points so you can make sure to get as many sculptures as you can for yourselves and for your lines. You need to be shifting to having field battles and swarming structures and things like that from a personal perspective. Now, for the Osiris League, you should never stop. You should never stop pushing. Even though you might be mathematically out, there's more at stake than just the numbers. Being in the Osiris League playoffs means that you're one of the best, and that means you need to put up your best and your brightest, your best efforts, and that means it's all the way down to the wire. There's 14 minutes and some change left, but that doesn't mean you shouldn't stop fighting, and I don't see that happening from DSP at all. I still see blue blinking structures. I still see tons of open field fights from DSP as well. This Desert Altar at the bottom from Deadly Sins Pride is getting held because they've got tons of open field armies sitting there ready to swarm the rally, which then just broke. Tons of sad faces running back for JWM. But again, JWM kind of doesn't need to be as hard pushing right now. They've got plenty of points. They've got plenty of Ark of Osiris captures in their back pocket as well. And again, starting to posture in the middle to get their armies ready for that next Ark capture, which will be in about 4 minutes. Even if DSP captures this Ark, though, and they somehow are able to grab it and hightail it back to one of their outposts or one of their structures that they own, that's still not going to be anywhere close to enough points. JWM has done a fantastic job of really positioning themselves on this battlefield and owning the map when it comes to pressing their agenda. They have made sure that DSP has been on their back foot the entire match and made sure that they're playing JWM's game and not DSP's game.
Yeah. When it comes to points per minute, as you were mentioning, I saw that the folks on both teams really are all set up and ready to go. The only one individual that was missing was the guy who joined at the end. The 30th member is still trying to catch up a little bit. Other than that, nothing really can be said, right? As soon as the map went blue on the top side, it stayed blue. I recall 1 or 2 buildings going red and then going back to blue, but that's the whole story, right? So what can DSP do at this point, right? There's 12 minutes remaining. They probably know they have lost this, and as you said, they can't let go off the gas just yet. But how do you utilize these 12 minutes to gain something back? I think that some of the things that, as a team who is currently fighting in Osiris League as well and losing a matchup with so much time remaining, is you have some time to start looking a little bit through the buildings. More specifically, if you click on buildings and go into battle report, you'll be able to see all the battle reports that happened inside that building during that match. And so a point that could be interesting for rally leaders, especially those who have lost a substantial amount of rallies, is go in there really quickly and screenshot a bunch of these reports. Try to figure out if you have any questions, any situations as to how did we get to this point. Taking screenshots of these battle reports can be very, very useful for later on to analyze your gameplay, as well as, experiment. This is 12 minutes now that you have where you can experiment. You can literally experiment with different pairings, with different commanders. This is the time where you don't have to let go of the gas, but you can try things along the way. Try rally combinations. Keep an eye on timings. See how long it takes you to march on the field from one place to another. Utilize 11 minutes worth of Ark of Osiris time you have to improve your strategy. So I end up getting out of a match and not losing essentially as much because you've gained a little bit of insight along the way. I think that it's very underrated, the fact that people have this much time left on a map that they rarely have access to, and they don't utilize it enough for experimentation and planning ahead.
Yeah, they should definitely have a spectator dedicated to just that. I definitely don't think that the players that are actually playing should be doing that, because they've got things to do. These points, even though they're behind and even though they're probably going to lose, speaking of Deadly Sins Pride, these points matter. These first 3 weeks of the playoffs for Ark of Osiris League, they're critical because it's not just an elimination deal. Like you lose and you're done. That's not the case for the first 3 weeks. Every point they can get, because what if there's a tiebreaker? The top 2 teams from each group move on to the last round of 16. So if there's a 3-way tie, if we have 2 wins and 1 loss for 3 of the 4 teams inside of their respective group, then I believe it goes to points. And if you are in this position, as you know, DSP is, where they've got 22,000 points, they're not going to win. But what happens if they're tied for the top three inside of their group, and they're short by 1,000 points because they decided to just kind of call it in and phone it in?
No, of
One, that would
course.
be a gut punch, right? That'd be a huge gut punch, and be like, wow, we just let that slip through our fingers. But two, again, it's a pride thing. I think that's kind of no pun intended for DSP being Deadly Sin's pride, but I want to say that they're not going to stop scrapping and clawing until the very end. And I point, absolutely, you should have, as an alliance, especially at this level, you should have somebody running through those reports, seeing what worked, seeing what didn't. Why did this Genghis and Double C rally beat this Richard Charles led infantry defense? Because technically, again, cavalry is not supposed to necessarily beat infantry. But one thing that those battle reports don't necessarily tell you is all the swarming that's happening, all the open field fighting that's happening around it. So you definitely want to be able to have somebody not only looking at those reports, but also recording the match so they can pair it up. And that's how you learn. Like you said, that's why we have the roles that we have in the game, right, Gecko? Both of us are content creators for this game. So we want to be able to provide stuff like that for the population that plays this game, which is larger and larger by the day. It's getting huge. I'm really looking forward to bringing some of this stuff to our respective channels as well.
Yeah, I completely agree. Like our job would be to be the ones bringing you guys all these questions and answers with content about not only Ark of Osiris but Osiris League, as well as in general every other mode of this game, when we find things that are useful and potentially game changing that you should know about. I don't know, to an extent, I think that there are different types of modes people go into, right? So as an example, you can see that the Shrine of War went down in the favor of DSP. That Shrine of War that was JWM's at the top, at the bottom left-ish. So it's the Shrine of War that was JWM's. I don't think JWM are necessarily too upset about it at this point in time. If they would have lost that 10 minutes into the match, you would have seen a much different reaction of JWM to not even give those 2 minutes to DSP to potentially lock this in. This is the kind of stuff I'm talking about. JWM never let go of the gas, but the difference is they're not carrying too much at this point if this Shrine of War goes in the favor of DSP for a little while. And I can promise to you, they could have had this rally out much faster. It wouldn't have been a mixed armies rally like it was right there. It was just a matter of they know where they're at right now, and it's time to utilize our time the best possible. I don't know to tell you who is trying what, but I can promise to you that both DSP and JWM, and I can tell you that for a fact on JWM's side, someone was trying something. That's how we got to this situation. And that's the beauty, right? You got to be able to I don't know how you'd say it, to balance that pride with advancement. Being able to get all the points right now is good, but if you can give the other team 5,000 points and in return learn something that'll give you the win next time, is it worth it?
Yeah, and so I agree with you. Just, you were looking at that Shrine of War before, and JWM was like, okay, let's go ahead and take that back.
Yep.
I mean, no big deal.
Yep. And same thing with the Sky Altar right now.
Yep, exactly right. So at this point, being 6 minutes left in the match, that JWM has pretty much just said, hey, let's keep what we've got. Let's have some open field battles. Let's have some fun. The points are definitely going in our favor, and certainly the match as well. That being said, like we were saying before, this does not count DSP out from winning at least second place in their respective group. They've got a tough group. Having JWM in your group is going to make that group one of the toughest. JWM definitely has stepped up their game in a big way. I remember seeing JWM fight their first Ark of Osiris versus now watching them play their first playoff Osiris League match. I've seen definite progression. I've seen massive strategy increases. I remember seeing just the flood that is JWM in the past, and just really utilizing the power advantage that they had. Whereas here, I see a very strategic and tactical JWM utilizing that flood of T5 to really impose their will on the battlefield. I'm very impressed.
I think that if you guys, for those of you who don't know the background story behind these things, obviously, big boy disclaimer, I am a member of JWM. You guys saw a couple of things flashing on the screen that had to do with JWM. That's because I'm the one spectating and inside this alliance. And I can tell you, even before I was part of JWM, I was part of casting JWM versus UCS, one of the first big boy Ark of Osiris matches that happened. And that was, I think, the only loss JWM ever had. And they came into a match just, and this is coming from them, from us, not coming from someone observing from the outside. This is insider information as well. People said, listen, that matchup was the biggest wake-up call JWM's ever had, because Ark of Osiris is not only a matter of power, it's not only a matter of troops, but it's a matter of strategy. And we marched into that game going, we're gonna just overpower anyone. And when they faced someone like UCS, who was a very worthy opponent, who was more strategic, all of a sudden things went, well, it's not only about power anymore. And from that moment on, JWM's leader has consistently been telling me that their focus has only been strategy, because to be able to overwhelm the open field with tier 5s, they know they can do that.
Yeah, I mean, and again, that's why Osiris League is so fantastic of an event. So much, like, so many strategies get to play out right in front of your eyes, and there's no possible way, unfortunately, to see every piece of the action with, you know, just over 3 minutes left in the match. You know, it's one of those things where you wish you were a spider, right? You have like 80 eyes. You can see everything that's going on, because honestly, not so much in this match being kind of a one-sided affair, especially about halfway through, you could really kind of tell which way the match was going. Look at all those armies, by the way. It's a matter of
madness.
Seeing one piece affect the other piece, and they're not even on the same side of the map. It could be a fight at JWM's altar and a fight on the right side of DSP's obelisk that end up turning the battle. And there's just so many moving parts. You need to have coordination. You need to have that strategy. I'm really happy to hear that JWM has taken that to heart, because, again, like you said earlier on, it was all about really moving across the map and just hitting that attack button and just pushing your troops across and just wiping the floor, which works whenever you have that to your advantage. But if you've got that and you really put the investment and the time into learning the strategy of the game, learning how to utilize rallies, learning how to utilize commander combinations, placement of your troops, positioning of your armies, taking up occupying space inside of the arc area so that you can make sure that you can pull that arc back to your side. There's so many different pieces of strategy that work here, but they've done that. You can tell. You can absolutely tell that they planned this out from the beginning. They knew exactly what they were doing, and they executed it flawlessly.
So for those of you who are here with us still till the end, a lot of you dropped off as the match started to wind down. One of the things that I will point out for you folks to remember as homework, that is right, we're giving you guys homework on this stream, is remember the name Pepe. You definitely want to keep your eye on him next Ark of Osiris match that we cast, that is JWM versus whoever else it would be. We haven't chosen those matches yet. Next JWM Arc, you guys watch. Keep an eye on Pepe. Man, this guy has been all over the map. He is a 4 to 5 March beast that has been going from the center. He helped out get the Ark of Osiris early on. I just saw him going for the defense of the Sky Altar. Immediately after that, he postured towards the Shrine of War. His movement on the map is going to be something I recommend those of you who are capable of spectating in-game as well as watching here to keep your eyes on the match every time we show you things. See if you can find Pepe somewhere, because he is a very mobile player who has been so influential throughout this match that it's really mind-blowing to see how, and all these names too, slowly and steadily keep your eye on them. This is one of them that I'll tell you, but there are a few others that if you keep your eyes on the names of the players in nearby vicinity of fights, you're really going to start seeing how JWM divided themselves into small pods and how much movement those pods have, to the point where a rally breaks, these folks are not going back to their city. They're already aimed somewhere else. They haven't even given them their march a second to contemplate where to go. And
that's the
bam,
match.
Victory goes.
That's the match.
Well, we do get to see the victory as we are on the side of JWM's from the camera point of view, box with the individual score. And let's take a look.
Champion of Egypt. Good
And
job, Box.
Hell yeah. And let's take a look at the units. Healed. Whoo! I'm sorry.
Oh my.
I'm sorry. Go, Dragothian, take this, please.
Okay, so all right, so let's run down the battle summary here. Obviously, JWM with the victory, looking at over 55,000 points, going up against Deadly Sin Pride's 25,000 points. All the Ark of Osiris captures going in favor of JWM. Occupation score again in favor of JWM, and the provisioning score. All three categories, 8 points. JWM secured the advantage in all of them. Kills, 22 million kills. Fantastic job. That's a lot of open field battles, and that's a lot of swarming structures. So really wounded unit, basically the flip-flop of that respective category. But just like Gecko said, look at the units healed. Over 10 million units healed for DSP and 0. That's right, count it, 0 for JWM. So what does that mean?
0.
What does that mean when you look at unit healed? That means they just have a lot of troops. They have a lot of troops, and they don't need to heal them. So that means that they're saving their units, they're saving their healing speed ups for real battles when it comes to KVK, when it comes to just normal kingdom stuff that's happening whenever you're doing sparring and testing, just like they said about the strategy, right? Wow, that's a telling figure on just how powerful JWM is in this game, not having to heal a single solitary unit.
Man, oh man, I guess JWM came in really with a statement today that they're not here to mess around. They have been preparing for a while. They have the troops ready to go. They don't need it. I do think DSP made a fantastic play by healing as much as they did. They wanted to be in this, and they knew they had to get to the point where they healed as much as they did to be able to compete. And honestly, it's very good to see the willingness to invest by DSPs, guys, because a lot of folks would have said, listen, this is not worth it. Let's not waste our investment. Let's not waste our speed ups. Let's not waste because this is going to the garbage to an extent. We shouldn't do it. No, these guys came into with a mentality that we want to win no matter what. They're willing to put in those healing speed ups. They're willing to also put in the provisions work that they had a little bit of provisions happening in there. Occupation score wasn't their strongest, as you said. And yeah, the clear victory goes to JWM. Any final thoughts from you, Dragothian?
I was just about to say, so let's kind of summarize what created the victory for JWM. One thing they had no control over was the fact that DSP was short 2 players. So that definitely helped. That being said, even with a full complement of troops and full complement of governors on side of DSP, just you can watch the match and see JWM's strategy unfold. They had a very clear objective to take the middle very early. They did that. They also were able to push very quickly on the opponent's altars, both being the sky and desert altars on both the top and bottom lane. So easily you could tell that JWM had an agenda and a strategy, and they were executing it very, very well. Whereas DSP seemed like they were slow out of the gate. Like you said, very early on in the match, they just weren't quite in position quickly enough to react effectively to what JWM was doing. JWM was using their afterburners, and DSP were bringing their troops out and making sure that they had their stuff in the right places, but not, unfortunately, at the right times. And that just put them on the back foot right off the gate. And JWM pushing and taking that initiative, pushing that front forward, taking all those objectives. I think that's what really led to the victory, JWM taking that victory, because they just had that strategy in place with the troops in the right place at the right time. And we're able to continue that for basically 60 minutes.
I couldn't have said it any better. I think that we saw one of the best coordinated matches we've seen in a while, and it didn't get the amount of attention that White Tigers did in the 7 p.m. match because primarily of the times, but we're going to be seeing DSP quite a bit still, and so are JWM progressing on with our group stage of the playoffs. Dragothian, my friend, thank you very, very much for casting today. Guys, of course, if you guys enjoy our commentating, make sure you go hit up Dragothian's channel as well as myself. Hit the subscribe button. Come say hi to us in the comments. We're both available there if you have any questions, comments, suggestions about the cast, in the comments here as well as in our own channels. Come say hi. Dragothian, thank you very much, my man.
Thank you, and thanks everybody for watching. I hope you enjoyed it.
Yeah, let's head back to the studio for a goodbye really quickly. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for watching this cast. Congratulations to JWM. Thank you again, Dragothian, for co-casting with me. I want to part ways with you guys right now. We have another awesome week worth of waiting, and then round 2 of Osiris League coming to you next week. We will be casting 5 matches next week, the 5 matches available, and you guys will get to pick which cast which match we're gonna cast in either the Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, or maybe Discord of Rise of Kingdoms. So make sure you go follow all those. Of course, go hit a subscribe on my channel as well as Dragothian's channel. Links on the screen at all time and in the description as well. Thank you guys for being awesome. Again, don't forget to smash a like on this stream before you leave. And we'll see you guys sooner rather than later. You guys enjoy the rest of your day. Take care. And what else can be said? Peace.